In the last lecture, we started working on the password reset functionality and we implemented few of the logics like getting the user from the database based on user's email and then generating a password reset token for that user. Now we need to send that password reset token to the user's email so that he can use it for resetting his password. So here we are finding the user based on the email which the user has provided for resetting the password, and then we are generating a password reset token here. Now we want to send this password reset token to the user's email. Now, to work with email, that means in order to send email, we are going to install a package called NodeMailer. So let's first go ahead and let's do that. So let's go to this command terminal here, and here let's type this npm install command, and we want to install NodeMailer. So the NodeMailer package has been installed. Now, in order to send email, we are going to create an email handler function which we can reuse in our application whenever required. So inside this utils folder, let me go ahead and let me create a new file, and I will simply call it as email.js. And inside this file, the first thing which we are going to do is we are going to import NodeMailer. And now let's go ahead and let's create a function. Let's call it send email. And for this function, we are going to receive some options, basically from which mail we want to send the email, to which email address we want to send the email message body, and all those things. So we will set those things on this option. And then let's also go ahead and let's export this send email function from here. So for that, we can say module.exports. Basically, we want to export this function as default. So from here, we want to export this send email function. Alright, so let's start implementing the functionality for sending the email. So the first thing here which we need to do is we need to create a transporter. So the transporter here is basically a service that will actually send the email, because it's not the Node.js that will send the email. The transporter will be a service which we need to define here, and then it will be responsible for sending the email. For example, a service like Gmail. But Gmail is not the service which we are going to use here, because here, since we are trying to create a real world application, we are not going to use Gmail service for sending the email. And also, apart from Gmail, we also have other well-known services like SendGrid and Mailgun, etc. We will use SendGrid a bit later in this course. For now, we will use a spatial development service which basically fakes to send email to real addresses, but in reality, these emails end up trapped in the development inbox. And we can then analyze them by having a look on how they will look in the production. And if we want to modify something there, we can modify the mail content according to our need. So the service which we are going to use here is called as Mailtrap. And in order to use it, we need to sign up for that. So let's open browser, and there let's search for Mailtrap, and let's open it. So this is the service which we are going to use. Basically, with this service, we can fake to send emails to the client, but these emails will never reach these clients in actual, and instead it will be trapped in our mail trap. And in this way, it avoids sending any development emails to your client or to your application users. So let's go ahead and let's sign up for this service. Here, I'm going to sign up using my Google account. So I'm signed up here now. Let's click on the start testing button. And currently here we have one inbox which is called as my inbox. And it is this inbox where we will receive all the mails. So let's again go to this my inbox. And here we can see the details of all the configurations which we need. For example, the host, the port number which we can use, the username, and the password which we need in order to send the email. So let's go back to VS Code, and there let's do this configuration. Now I'm going to save these configurations in config.in file. So there, let's first go ahead and let's first create some environment variables. For example, email underscore user. And to this, we will save the user ID which we need in order to send the email. So I will copy this username and paste it here. Then let's also go ahead and let's create another environment variable, email password. And again, let's go back to the browser. From there, let's copy this password and let's assign it to this email password. Then we are going to create another environment variable, email underscore host, and there we are going to assign this host. And finally, let's also create email underscore port, so the port number which we will use for sending the email. And for that, we can select any of these ports. Okay, so let me select the first one here and let's specify it here. And let's save this file. All right, now let's go back to our email.js, and there let's go ahead and let's create a transporter. So here I will create a variable. I will call it transporter. And in order to create the transporter, we can say node mailer dot create transport. And to this, we need to pass the options. So the first option which we need to set here is service. And to this service, we can assign any service. For example, if you want to use Gmail service, you can assign Gmail here. But here, we want to use our host. In this case, since we are going to use this Mailtrap, so in this case, the host is this one. Okay, and we are assigning this value in our environment variable to this email host. So let's go ahead and let's specify this email host here to this service. For that, we can say process.inv.email host. Then we also need to specify the port. Again, we are going to use the environment variable, so it is process.inv.email port. And then we need to specify the auth property, and this is going to be an object. And in here, we need to specify the user. So in this case, the user is going to be email underscore user. And actually, it is an environment variable. So here we need to say process.inv.email user. And then let's also specify the password here. And again, we are going to use the environment variable. So let's say process.inv.email underscore password. Okay. So this is our configuration for transport in NodeMailer. Now, depending on the service which you are using, this configuration might change. For example, if you use Gmail here, then the configuration will look a bit different. Moving on, the next step is to define some options for the email we are going to send. So let's create another variable. Let's call it email options, and it is going to be an object. And in here, we have to define some options. So first we need to specify from which email we want to send the email. So it is going to be a string, and here let's simply say Cineflix support. So this is the name, and then we also need to specify the email address. So let's simply say support@cineflix.com. Okay, then we need to specify the to option. So this to option, basically the mail to which we want to send this email, that will come from this options parameter. Okay, so here we will simply say option dot email. Then we also need to specify the subject. Again, this subject will also come from this option. So we can say option dot subject. And we also need to specify the email text. Okay, and again, this is also going to come from this option. So we can say option dot, and on this option, we will set a message property. So we want to read that message and we want to set it as email text. Finally, let's go ahead and let's send this email. For that, on the transporter, so basically this variable which we are creating here, we can call a function called send mail. And to this send mail, we need to pass this email options. Okay, let's save this file. So now when we will call this send email function, this function is responsible for sending an email. So let's go ahead and let's use this function in our auth controller at this line. Now, in order to use that send email function, first we need to import this email.js in this file. So let's scroll up and let's require the email module. So let's create a variable. Let's call it send email. That is the function name. And we want to require the email module. So for that, first we need to move one folder up. In there we have this utils folder, and in there we have this email module. Okay, and now let's go ahead and let's call this send email. Let's scroll down, and here we want to call that send email function. Also keep in mind that this send mail function here, it is an asynchronous function. So basically it is going to return a promise, and we need to wait for that promise to get resolved. For that we can use this await keyword here, and since we are using this await keyword here, we need to make this function as async. Okay, and then when we are calling this send email function here also we need to use the await keyword. Now when we are calling this send email function, we also need to pass some options, right? So what we are going to do is, first I will create a variable. I will call it reset URL. So basically we want to send this reset URL in the email body so that user can click on that reset URL and reset his password. Here I will use backticks, and let's go ahead and let's create this reset URL. So first we need to specify the protocol for this URL. It is going to be either HTTP or HTTPS. So we are going to read that protocol from the request. So here I will use this template literal syntax, and there we can say request dot protocol. Okay, so this protocol is either going to be HTTP or HTTPS. After that, let's use colon, double slash, and then we want to get the domain, basically the root URL. So again, we can get that from the request. So here again, we can say request dot get, and we want to get the host. So in this case, in our example, this expression here, it is going to return the local host. Basically, it is going to return the IP address 127.0.0.1 colon the port number, which is 3000 in our case. Okay, after that, we have slash API slash v1 slash users and then slash, and now here we are going to specify the reset password. So it is basically going to be this URL to which the user will send a reset password request, right? So if I go back to this authrouter.js, you see here we are creating that route slash reset password. So after this URL, we are going to specify reset password in order to send a reset password request. And here in this route, it is not going to be a post request. It is going to be a patch request, because here we are not going to create any new resource. Here we are going to update an existing resource, right? Basically here we are going to update the password of an existing user. So here it should be patch. The request method should be patch. And with this reset password, we are also going to specify a route parameter, and let's simply call it as token. So this token here is basically going to be the reset password token. So this token is basically going to be the password reset token, which we are sending to the user in the email. Okay, so when the user will make a password reset request in the URL, he will also specify that reset token. So here after this, let's say slash, and we are going to have that reset token inside this reset token variable. So let's specify it here. Okay, then let's go ahead and let's create the email text. So for that, I will create this message variable here, and the text, let's say, is going to look something like this. Let's say it will say we have received a password reset request. Please use the below link to reset your password. Then we want to give a line break, maybe 2 line breaks, and then we want to specify the reset password link. So again, I will use the template literal syntax here, and we are storing that reset password link inside this reset URL. So let's specify it here. Okay, again, let's add 2 line breaks, and then let's say this reset password link will be valid only for 10 minutes. Okay, Now to this send email, let's pass some options. So here let's specify the email to which we want to send this email, and we are going to get it from the user object. So we can say user.email. Then let's also specify the subject, and for the subject let's say password change request received, or you can specify any subject here. Okay, and then let's also specify the message, and to this message we are going to assign this message variable. Okay, now when we are using this send email function, and since it is running asynchronously, it might be possible that it returns a rejected promise. And this can happen due to several reasons. For example, the service which we are using for sending the email is not running, or because of some other reason. So here we might have a rejected promise, but we are not going to handle that rejected promise using our global error handling middleware. That's because if the mail is not sent with the password reset token to the user, we might want to reset the password reset token and password reset expired token in the database to undefined. Because if we don't do that, then the email is also not sent, and in the database the password reset token and the password reset token expired at is still set with some value, and we don't want that. So we are going to handle the rejected promise returned by this send email here itself using the try catch block. So let me go ahead and let me use a try catch block, and inside this try block let's put this code, and let's also specify the catch block. In this catch block we will receive the error that has occurred. So if the reset password email is not sent, that means if this function has returned some rejected promise, in that case what we are going to do is on the user object we are going to set the password reset token to undefined. Okay, in the same way we will also set password reset token expires to undefined, and then we want to save these two values in the database. So for that, on the user object we are going to call the save function, and there we don't want to perform the validation, so we will use validate before save, and we will set it to false because here we don't want the validation. And then we want to call the global error handling middleware. So for that, from here we can simply return by calling the next function, and in there let's pass an instance of our custom error class, and in the error message let's say there was an error sending password reset email, please try again later. Okay, and here the status code will be 500 because this type of error might occur due to some server issue. So that's why we are specifying this 500, that means internal server error. So this code will be executed if this send email is not able to send a password reset email to the user. That means if it has returned a rejected promise. But if this function has sent the email properly, that means if the user has received a password reset email, in that case, let's send a simple response. So for that, let's say response dot status. So status here I'm going to set to 200. That means everything is okay. And in the response, we are going to send some JSON data. And in that JSON data, let's specify the status as success. And let's set a message. And there, let's say password reset link sent to the user email. Okay, with this, let's try to test this functionality. So let's save the changes here. Let's go to this terminal. So the server has started. Let's wait for the DB connection to be successful. And the DB connection is successful. Let's go to Postman. And here we are in the forgot password request. Let me actually save this request first. And I will save it in user folder. And let's call it as forgot password. Okay, let's save this request. All right. Now let's go ahead and let's make a request to this forgot password. So you see we are receiving this error message. There was an error sending password reset email. Please try again later. It looks like there's something wrong. Let's go to VS Code and let's go to this email.js. All right. So in Node Mailer, there have been some changes. So now instead of service, I think we need to use host, and instead of password, we need to use simply pass. Okay. Let's save the changes now and let's try it out now. So let me go back to Postman. And now let's try to make a request to this forgot password. So when I click on this send button, all right, so now we have this success response and it says password reset link sent to the user email. So now we can go back to the browser and now you will notice that here we have a mail. And if I click on this mail, this is the body of that mail. Okay, so you can see from Cineflex support to mark@gmail.com. But in actual, this mail has not been sent to this email address. It is just trapped here in this mail trap. And this is the request body which we have specified. And in this request body, you will see the password reset link. Okay, so it is HTTP localhost port 3000 API/v1/user/reset password. And after that, we have the password reset token. And we can verify this reset password token if it is same or not. For that, we can go to VS Code and there we are logging the plain password reset token and the encrypted password reset token. And we are sending the plain password reset token in the email, right? So as you can see, it ends with E0189. And if I go back to the mail, there also it ends with E0189. So it is the same password reset token. So now this forgot password functionality, it is working as expected. We are sending the email to the user with the password reset link. So now in the next lecture, we are going to implement the reset password functionality where the user has to make a request to this URL. Okay, basically he will make a request to this URL, to this reset password, and in the URL only we are going to send this password reset token. And based on that, we are going to allow user to reset his password. So this is all from this lecture. Just keep in mind that now with the node mailer, instead of service, we need to use host, and instead of password, we need to use pass. All right, so this is all from this lecture. If you have any questions, then feel free to ask it. Thank you for listening and have a great day.